If you looked at the stories of Jesus today against the backdrop of the stories through history, you might say this is a myth, which is really challenging to us because Jesus is also one of, if not the best accounted for person in the history of the world, in the sheer records we have, the sheer proof texts and accounts from around the world at the time. It's staggering the amount of historical validity. We know more about Jesus than we do the entire Roman Empire. So what's the deal? Is Jesus a myth or the Christ, the Messiah we know him to be? Well, understand how story worked in the days of Jesus, because the lines were often pretty blurred between historical texts, arts, dramas. Very cleanly defined sections in the bookstore didn't really exist back then. Things could get pretty gray. Because on one hand, you have Josephus giving his rigid accounts of ethnic uprisings and historical happenings in the ancient world. And then you have the Gospel of Caesar Augustus, written on columns in Priene, dictating how the Son of God was, well, Caesar in the Roman cult. In a pre-scientific world, gods were in government. No separation of church and state here. The gods ruled, and then rulers beneath them most often, or the representative ruler was somehow divine too. None of this was new. In fact, it was intentionally familiar. Jesus comes as the Son of Man in a world struck with war, famine, poverty, and declares a new gospel. Because this culture is also reliant on its crops, its fruits. There was no one-click marketplace if you were hungry. If your neighbors were hungry, often you were too. If there was war or famine, it could get really bad because people would starve. They wouldn't be able to plant their crops. There wouldn't be food for the next year. Child mortality was astronomical in these days. The Roman accounts of that are pretty brutal. The third world today doesn't even compare to the conditions of some of the average families and some of the cultures we see in the biblical narrative. So you have a Savior coming into that picture, and he feeds you. He's the bread of life. He heals you. He casts out dark powers. He not only heals your children, he brings them back to life. These are the things your typical person would wrestle with. In the grips of a world held by death, this is how a good God sends his representative, his son. It is mythic. It does skirt genres because Jesus did, because he's tying together narratives from the whole biblical story to give people hope in him. He's proving he has come from above, an outlier from humanity, yet he's born like us. Jesus was real. To quote the great late Dr. Heiser, he was also the myth that was true, which makes his story the best story yet to come from the ancient world.